So you started going through all that content, and then you started applying for internships in the US. That seems like a really long way to go to get practical experience. Had you like tried to get some here, or you just loved what was going on there maybe and thought, no, if I can get that, I want to do that?
Well, I think so. First of all, I'll say yes. I started consuming all that content off those coaches, and I decided the next step in the process was I needed to get some sort of real world, high level practical experience. I had a look around in Australia, but there's just really limited opportunities, and most of it is for people who are currently studying. So if you're not studying, it's really difficult to find anywhere that kind of offers internships at the level that I was kind of hoping to find. And I'd spoken to a few coaches in Australia who had gone over to America and done internships with colleges over there. So I just started looking into it, and it was more just the abundance of opportunities. Because like you kind of alluded to before, there's so many colleges over there and so many different sports programs and all. It's just massive. So there was so many opportunities. So I kind of just looked at it. And then part of it was like I was just ready for some sort of adventure too, I think.
Yeah, probably a bit sort of like cabin fever after being in uni for, what would it be, like 4 or 5 years or something like that?
Yeah, and then I worked for a few years on top of that. And then I was like, yeah, it'd be good to just go away and do something different for a little bit too.
Yeah, but when you started applying for gigs in the US, you were saying that you sort of found out that a lot of them won't actually take like international interns.
So I think I must have applied to a bit over 10 initially, and then probably half of them, 3, 4 of them got back to me and said, no, sorry, we don't take internationals. And then, yeah, then there was quite a few others that just didn't reply, so I assume it was the same with those.
Was there something specific about those 10, or those were just the ones that you came across that were sort of advertising?
No, I think it was more, so I decided that I ideally wanted to work with football, so American football. I'd kind of decided that was the setting I wanted to be in. And then I kind of just, literally it's just the more well-noted ones that I applied to pretty much just out of hope. I was like, well, if I'm going to do this, I may as well to apply to some of the bigger schools and just see what happens.
So you got accepted to, was it University of South Carolina, to work with their football team?
Yep.
What was that like, getting someone who said yes?
Oh, it was insane. I still remember. I'll never forget. So I was living with a mate of mine at the time. And I remember being in the bedroom, like it was late at night. I was just looking through my phone. I just got an email from them randomly got an email saying, we're happy to accept you, like based on a few things. So I had to go through a few different processes in terms of like an interview and all that sort of stuff, but they're like, provisionally, we're happy to accept. It blew my mind. Like I was like, because I had fully expected I would apply to all these ones, get rejected, then 6 months down the track, I'd know the process and be able to get accepted then. So it kind of blew my mind, because then the next step was I only had 10 weeks, whatever, till I had to go.
Did you have a passport?
Yeah, I had a passport.
Oh, good.
Yeah, which is lucky.
So you got accepted, you had 10 weeks. When did you, would you get there at like start of the year, end of the year? Like, is it tied to like when their pre-season starts, or they're just like, no, we got an opening, we'll take it?
So they run 3 or 4 internships a year. So they'll just start, yeah, so there's just four, yeah,
like a term based or something like that?
Yeah, exactly like that. So there's just 4, I don't know if it's 4, it might be 3 or 4 blocks each year. Or maybe it's 2, I don't know. But yeah, there's a couple of different cycles. So all the internships pretty much sync up with all the different colleges, particularly the football ones, because their seasons all start at the same time. So they'll have like a couple of different blocks of interns where different interns come in.
Does that mean you can potentially like cycle through different schools? So you do one and then, you sort of develop some relationships there and then say, look, you've got this second round of internships coming up after this at other places. Is there anywhere you could recommend me to? So can you like hop from one school to the next potentially?
Absolutely. That is 100%. That's exactly what they do.
Oh,
so
really?
these interns will essentially bounce around. Most of them will do at least 2 or 3 internships in the bid to try and get a job. It's very competitive over there. So these guys in the internships are really like kissing a lot of ass and like trying to make themselves look good. And that's the whole idea. You do an internship, get a recommendation from the coaches there, then you go to another internship somewhere else, and they just keep building up those recommendations in hope that when a job comes up, you apply and you have those recommendations behind you and you've done well in those internships to help you get that job.
So if someone else wanted to sort of follow that path, I guess it's almost similar to getting into the like FIFO jobs or mines here, it's like, it doesn't necessarily matter what job you get. You just got to get one. And then you sort of got your foot in the door. You start developing a reputation based on your work and develop relationships. And then you can worry about where you actually want to go after that, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. So guys will bounce around and do these internships. Then say a job comes up at a low-level school. They apply for that job. They might get this job at that low-level school, and then the idea is for them to just build from there.
Okay. So what's that? I mean, I really have. You see, like, I don't know if you watch like Last Chance U on Netflix or something like that, and they have like snippets of like the interns, but I think they've only shown like one or two schools at this point. So what's that like being an intern? Because South Carolina's, I think it'd be a community college, wouldn't it?
No, so it's a big school.
Is it?
Yeah. So their football team is borderline top 25 Division 1 team.
Oh, okay.
So they were a pretty big school for what they do for football anyway. But the actual experience itself was unreal. In terms of being an intern, like I kind of alluded to before, it was very competitive. All the interns are kind of friendly, but they're competing against each other at the same time. But it was interesting for me because I was never planning on staying over there and trying to get a job. So I was kind of like a backseat to that.
Yeah, so you can just like
observe and
enjoy it. And yeah.
Because I was still working hard and I was still doing everything I had to do and busting my ass and stuff. But like at the same time, I wasn't trying to get one over anyone. So I kind of had the advantage from that point of view.
So do you like live on campus? Do you have to find a place when you get there?
So I had to organise all my own stuff. They were like, we're happy to take you, but you have to organise all your stuff.
Did you do that from Australia or did you get there early and just sort of, or you just got there and like, I don't know, I'll figure it out?
Nah, so I Airbnb'd it all.
Oh, really?
So I just used Airbnb and pre-booked all my accommodation.
Holy shit, that must have been expensive.
Yeah, it was. And looking back on it, like that's where I like probably spent way more on that than I should have. But I just wanted to know that I didn't have to worry about it because I was on such a tight time frame that I was getting there the day before the internship started and then I was literally leaving the day after I finished. So I didn't really have any time. So I just wanted to be able to get there, know I've got my accommodation sorted and just be able to go into it.
So what was the job? What were your like roles and responsibilities while you were over there? So
we were essentially strength and conditioning coaches, but then we just had to do all the little shit jobs that come with that. Like we'd have to like a lot of cleaning of the gym and a lot of random things as well. The S&C coaches do a lot more than just coach over there as well though. They go to the actual team practices and help out there however they can. And they generally just help out with all other areas in any way possible. So they're
almost like, you know, when they're not doing their S&C stuff, do they just become like a roamer? It's like, you know, if there's a job to do, well,
yeah, pretty much. And some of the S&C coaches were good football players back in their day. So they might, when they go to the team practices, they might go and help with the position-specific athletes who that play in their position. So they kind of help out with little extra things like that as well. So, you don't... you played like rugby league, but do you have any experience with American football or even like flag football or anything like that? Not playing, but I understand the game from playing Madden. Oh, okay. That's literally it. Like, so growing up playing Madden, I never thought that would come in handy, but I understand I know how the basics of how the game works, the positions, what's physically required in all the positions and all those sorts of things. Yeah, because there's like 40 people on a team or something? 50 plus. Oh, really? Yeah, in a whole squad, yeah. Because you've got like your offense, your defense, special teams, and then probably a whole bunch of reserves. Yeah, so within that, so there's 11 players on the field. So within that, you got your offense, defense, which is like that's your 22 players, and then you might have, I don't know how many actually suit up for a game, probably 30 something. But then they have all extra players on that. They have development players who don't play and things like that too. So yeah, it's a whole squad of 55 or something like that. So did you get the practical experience you wanted out of it? Oh, definitely. Like, so when we first got there, they were like, for the first couple of sessions, you guys can just observe and kind of get a feel for how it works, sit back for the first week and see what happens. Then the second week, we'll kind of throw you into it. That never happened. Very first session, like all the players come in and sometimes you might have 30 players in the gym at one time and there was 5 strength and conditioning coaches. So then they obviously can't look after everyone. So straight away, pretty much just thrown into the fire and you just start coaching. I'll never forget, like day one, I was like, shit, like you just had to start coaching straight away and just kind of had to start figuring it all out.
So have they, like, they've got their own training program when they go in there?
Yeah.
So you're basically just helping them through the training program?
Yeah. So how it would work is on all the racks. So the way this gym was lined up, there was just 2 rows of racks, like 12 racks down each side of the gym. And they would come in, the programs would be stuck up on the racks. So they're just stuck up on the racks. They come in, they know exactly what they've got to do, and they pretty much just get started.
Wow. So it's almost like that seems super efficient. It's like a conveyor belt approach to coaching.
Yeah, well, see as well. So with the NCAA, so college athletes in America, in Division 1, there's limitations on how long they're allowed to keep the guys in the gym. So they're only allowed to have them in the gym 1 hour at a time. So they have to be really efficient.
Yeah.
So they can't be any mucking around at the start or at the end. They have to get them in. We're start at this time. This is how it goes.
So, I mean, you wouldn't have had a huge amount of practical experience going in there, but now that, you've been doing this for quite a while, when you look back on it, what do you think about the quality of coaching that went on there? Not just in, the practical side of it of helping people while they're training, but the programming that went on.
Yeah, I think the programming, there was nothing that I hadn't seen before in the programming. It was all pretty straightforward. They're massive on Olympic lifting over there. They love Olympic lifting. But other than that...
Are they any good at it?
It's hard because they push it onto all the athletes, and some guys it just doesn't really work that well for them, but others it works really well for. Yeah. So you kind of get that mixed bag of...
Fucking drives, but I see it a lot on social media where there'll be like some coach and their athletes, the power clean seems to be the big one for them, and you look at it and you're like, I don't understand why you're using that exercise when that's not a power clean. That's like a kipping reverse curl or something.
Yeah. And that is, you definitely did notice that variation. Like some guys could do it really well and then some guys kind of struggled, but it was just the thing, so everyone did it.
Do you have the opportunity to do you have the time? I guess maybe with an hour, depending on how much they got on their plate, you maybe don't have, because I mean, it's not a simple thing to sort of get someone up to speed with.
No, and the coaches, to their credit, the coaches were really good. They would be like, they pretty much gave us freedom to do what we wanted. So they were like, if you need to rein that guy back, do it. So they were really good. But no, if you were going to teach someone, they would more have to come in on their own time and kind of upskill themselves in that setting. So
it sounds like they gave you a fair bit of autonomy on how to do things within the boundaries that they've set. They're like, look, this is what's going to happen. Go achieve that goal.
Definitely. So how it would work is they would assign us racks. So each intern would have each coach would have 2 or 3 racks that they'd be looking after to make sure all the racks were looked after. So including the interns. So I had 2 racks, and depending on the day or time slot, there'd be 3 people at each rack. So you'd be looking after those 6 guys. So it was your responsibility essentially to make sure they get through the program, and you're kind of monitoring the weight. You're loosely monitoring the weights they're using and all this sort of stuff. So you were kind of in charge of that.
So I don't know how optimal that approach would be from the athlete's side of it, but for a coach after practical experience, that seems... I mean, off the top of my head, I can't really think of a better way to do it, where you're sort of going, look, these are your boundaries. You're free to work within those boundaries. You've got time constraints, which means you need to learn how to problem solve quickly, and you need to learn how to prioritize, and you can't, fight ass around with your coaching cues. You have to be super precise in what you tell people to do. It seems like a really good environment to learn the practical side of coaching.
Yeah, definitely. And like I said, you're just thrown straight. We were thrown straight in from day one, so it was kind of like sink or swim. So start figuring it out straight away.
Yeah,
you had to find ways to make it work, and it's a very constrained environment. So you obviously have those time pressures, and you have a million athletes in there at once. So you kind of have to figure out how to make it work within those boundaries.
Do most people? I mean, it's sort of sink or swim. Do most people swim, or was there anyone who was sort of, they get to a point and they're just like, look, you're not ready?
No, most of the interns I was with they did pretty well.
Yeah.
There was varying levels of how well everyone did, obviously, which is always going to happen. But no, there was definitely no one who struggled significantly compared to everyone else. guys.